bowl. And one of the things you mentioned is, others talking about you, or, or things going on. And so there's an element of listening. And, why don't you drill into a couple examples there of what brands are doing, what some companies you've seen, and how they've interacted, what's important there for a brand in social media interacting with those talking about them.
Yeah, a couple, I'll start simple and then we'll get more complex if that's okay. Mm-hmm. So from a simple perspective, I think about some of the areas I think there's so much opportunity is really in restaurants and hotels, right? Because we all eat and
yep.
we, many of us go out to eat more than we should, guilty here. And oftentimes I check into Foursquare, I tweet about it, I post the Foursquare check-in to my Facebook page, okay? I'll tell you, there are so few companies that actually ever respond to me. Okay, I have over 150,000 followers on Twitter. I have influence within my communities, and yet I would guess that less than 1% of the time that I check in do I ever get a response from somebody. Okay. So number one thing there is opportunity. You can. Some of these organizations where, the brick and mortar businesses, the restaurants, the hotels, even the small business, the large chains, there's so much opportunity to rise above the crowd and stand out just by simply acknowledging that your customers exist and that they've taken the time to communicate with you and share their business with their following, right? And so here locally, we just moved to Orlando from Tampa, and we go to Outback Steakhouse a lot. It's like the only good restaurant in the area, and a couple other sushi places and stuff. And the Outback I check in all the time. I was the mayor there, I think, for a while. But, they do reply, and they have replied to my tweets a couple times, and I like the fact that they use the same tone of voice that they do if you are reading their menu and you're in your restaurant. So they'll reply back and say, hope you liked it. I can't remember the exact language of the tweets they use, but it's that same Australian, type of tone and language. Other examples are there's hotels, and I think hotels are another one where there is just tons of opportunity. How many of us check into a hotel and never get a response back, right? Mm-hmm. I would love to check in and have the hotel regularly tweet back to me and say, welcome back, Mrs. Moore. That means probably almost as much, if not more, than them saying that even when I walk in the front door.
Yeah.
Right? And so why not do that? Why not, when I check in on Foursquare, why don't I already have a tweet, at least within the next couple hours once I'm back in my room? Right. And they could say, don't forget, check out happy hour here. Or don't forget you get free breakfast in the morning. Right. I mean, that would go so far in my book as far as me becoming a loyal brand advocate and supporter of who and what they are. And so I think restaurants and brands, restaurants, brick mortars, and, hoteliers, there's just tons of opportunity there, the whole tourism. And I think maybe that's on my mind because I live here in Orlando, and that's all we have.
Sure, it's all around you. Yeah.
The other example I want to give, I think, is HostGator. And for those that aren't familiar with HostGator, they are basically a large hosting company, and they support everything from small businesses up to very large, businesses. And we had jumped around with a couple different hosts over the past few years in starting our business, and had a couple others that you probably know that we were not very happy with. And, one of the issues was really support. We had a couple of the big brand names out there and, just terrible support. They didn't have anybody available on the weekends. And so we did a lot of due diligence research and, found that HostGator had the quote-unquote capability to really help us. And we thought if we can work, we had heard they had good service. We heard they had good online service, integrating social, and that we knew that if we could get through some kinks with them, that likely it could possibly be a relationship that, they would be able to scale with us. And so we went ahead and switched over our sites to some of our sites to them. And initially, we actually had a few issues where, and it really was they helped us through it. There were some issues where, when I would send out a tweet on a Saturday or a new blog post on a Saturday morning, it would instantly, there would be 900 simultaneous clicks through to my website from one post.
Uh-huh.
And I was calling them saying, hey, you guys, you have issues in this shared environment. I'm leaving. And they were so diligent about working through it with me. And we finally found out I was the problem. Okay, so I was causing the shared environment to go down because of the simultaneous clicks that Google Analytics doesn't pick up. They don't pick up all those if it's simultaneous. And so through the process, they completely gave me an amazing offline experience. They helped me. We wound up upgrading, my pammarketingnut.com server to dedicated environment. We separated that from some of the other sites. And, it's been pretty good from there. Now, when I do have issues, what I am able to do with HostGator is literally send one single tweet. So even if it's a Saturday morning or if it's a Friday night, it never fails. It's somewhere that I'm out eating, somewhere like Outback or, Lake Nona Sushi here locally. And it goes down. And so all I have to do is send a tweet to HostGator and say, please help. Their little smiling gator replies back to me literally, usually within about 5 to 10 minutes. Okay, they reply back to me. And the best part is they put in the ticket for me. Okay, I never have to log on to the website. I never have to put in the ticket. They automatically look into it. They say, okay, Pam, we're going to look into this for you. They escalate it if it needs escalated. I get an email back within minutes telling me what the problem is and how they recommend me solving it. And I usually just have to authorize via email and say, okay. And honestly, within about 30 minutes to an hour, it's usually problem solved.
Okay.
And Pam didn't have to do anything besides send a tweet and reply to an email. Okay. To me, that is service, right?
Yes.
And
yeah.
I mean, amazing. It gives me goosebumps to talk about it. And last week, as an example, they had some major issues. They were down for close to 8 hours in a day, and major issues with some changes in their data center. But when I was tweeting with them, their little gator came back and said, Snappy, we were joking about Snappy having a bad day. And I'll tell you, the fact that I have a relationship with the people in that organization and the fact that, I communicate with this snappy alligator, last week, I didn't even think about leaving them. It wasn't even a thought. I'm thinking I want to help them make it through this. I was actually on Twitter trying to make light of it to help their brand, right? I'm not paid by HostGator, but I'm a loyal brand advocate because I see the power of their service and that they truly, care about my business.
Yeah.
And when we did a little bit of monitoring and looking at the tweets from that last week when that happened, and we were amazed to see how many others were having the same experience that we were, where they were positive. Even in a terrible situation, they were saying, HostGator, you usually provide really good service to me. And people were laughing. They were saying, it's funny that we can laugh about this. Kudos to HostGator for that, right? That you can have a data center completely go down and you still have customers that are on Twitter saying positive things about you.
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
And I just think I am getting ready to write up a blog post on it because I've just been amazed at what they've been able to do with that.
Okay. Yeah. So, what you're talking about there is social media as customer service, social media as listening, monitoring to be able to respond, and being responsive, trying to be, but also making your life easier. So you're just putting out a tweet there, submitting a ticket. So that's a value added. Just they know you're busy. They're helping you.
Integrated.
That's excellent.
Integrated into their process, right?
Yeah.
That's truly the difference between social media and social business. When we start to talk about social business, right, it's really that integration into your business through processes, through people, empowerment of your team and leveraging social to better, your business, your client's business, and, the ecosystem as a whole.
Yep. Yeah. Now, let's dig into that one a little further, because I know many small and medium-sized businesses kind of getting into social media are often, scared about, negative feedback and that being out there. So HostGator obviously would have had that potential, but what counsel do you have for those small, medium-sized businesses that are, hesitant about allowing that customer feedback on their Facebook page or, just on Twitter? What do they do, and what counsel do you have for them about that?
Yeah, I would say, take it head on. And that's why you have to think of that fishbowl analogy and just imprint that in your brain and in your heart, because that's really what it is. Right. And even if you hide, that moment you want to just cover up your face and say, oh, shucks, this speaks, right? And we've helped some brands that have experienced that. You just can't hide. The best thing you can do is just deal with it in the most positive way you possibly can, because you actually can turn a bad situation into a positive if you handle it right, because you're in that fishbowl anyway. Everybody's watching you. Yeah. And so they're watching, once something goes wrong, it went wrong. Okay. So whatever happened, if, I'm not going to mention examples, but, there's a ton of examples, Taco Bell dilemmas, the Applebee's dilemma. But once those things have happened, it's happened. Okay, you can't take that back. But now the next thing everybody's watching you for is how are they going to handle it, right? How is this brand going to respond on Twitter and on Facebook? And so don't delete the feedback, is my best advice. Yep. Don't close down your blog post so that nobody can comment to you. That's one of the things that we work with some companies, and a lot of media companies we work with, traditional media, they never want to open up their blog posts. They've come along now, but they always want to, lock down the comments. And I highly discourage that. That's like telling your client, your audience, I don't want to talk to you. If you're going to shut down those communication channels, you might as well just stick your hand in the face and say, talk to the hand because the ears aren't listening, right? That's basically what you're telling them, because your audience is telling you they want to communicate with you in a certain way. And when you ignore or delete their feedback and their communication to you, you're basically covering your ears. And if you were in real life, it's the same thing as you covering your ears and going, la, 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 la. I don't want to hear you. So I think you have to listen to them and respond to them no matter how hard it is, and take the time to slow down before you respond. You do not have to respond if you have a crisis. You do not have to respond within 20 seconds, right? You're better off grouping as a team, figuring out, hopefully you have a crisis management process in place. That would be the first thing I would say is really important. That you have a PR and social media crisis plan. But if you don't, at minimum you need to go regroup anyway and say, okay, how are we going to handle this? Don't let your intern that's managing your Facebook page reply out of emotion, right? You really need to take it serious and be as proactive as you can, but take the time to respond in the correct way versus, trying to do it in the next 5 minutes.
Yep. Yeah. So again, reiterating, making sure that you don't, delete things, and then you also, risk versus potential. Yes, there's risk. There's risk in everything. Right. But what we're seeing with social media and allowing that interaction is the potential, right? The way you can get loyal fans, rising to the occasion and jumping in and saying, hey, they've done this for me. They've helped me with this, all those potential that, and them sharing that within their networks, that power. That's one of the huge things of social media marketing.
Yes, absolutely. Right. And that's what happens too, because, I can tell you several case studies where, the brand has actually handled it correctly. And then when the blog posts come, right, so the people who are the journalists and the influencers and the bloggers who are out there writing about these things, if you handle it correctly, you either are giving them no news, right? So if you handled it correctly, and it kind of just starts to become a moot point. Does that make sense? So I've seen that happen where there may be a drama a drama situation, and you may think, boy, this is going to blow up, but the brand manages it in such a way. I think KitchenAid was a good example. There was an issue KitchenAid had with a tweet a while back. I actually wrote a blog post on it, and but KitchenAid handled it so professionally that there really wasn't a reason for a lot of people to go continue to write about it, right?
Okay.
And so sometimes it just kind of fades into the darkness